Good morning, everyone. I hope you guys are all having a fantastic morning. Of course, you know, I got to get started with, I have my coffee, my Frida, my Eye of the Tiger to get the morning off to a great start. I see everybody logging on, so good morning, good morning. Today, so happy Tuesday, right? Happy Tuesday. We're going to be going over the weekly market update right now, but I hope that I wanted to point out something. I got 3 messages yesterday and two messages yesterday and one this morning, phone screenshots, right? Screenshots of leads coming in from Lead Accelerator, which I absolutely loved. So I see that you guys are out there running ads. If you're getting results from it, if you're doing it, definitely let me know. I want to hear about the results. But I loved it because the person sent me a video scrolling down the phone, and it was new lead, new lead, new lead, new lead, new lead, new lead, right? Which is amazing to see. And I'll post that picture a little bit later. But I'm super excited for the results that everybody's getting. In fact, Shelly had just shared with me yesterday, I believe the listing that she's closing out right now came from Lead Accelerator. Diego had 2 appointments this past weekend from it. So there's a lot of activity going on. Congratulations, you guys. That's awesome. And I love hearing about those wins and successes. And with that, let me go ahead and get the screen shared. And that way we can jump right into our morning weekly market update. Awesome. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
I got the thumbs up. Okay, perfect. So the weekly market update. Now, we're and there's going to be some really interesting things, because if we talked about, if you guys remember what I spoke about last week when we were looking at some of the showing rates, one of the things that we were anticipating just by kind of seeing the numbers and the way that they were going is we were anticipating that while we had slightly basically got back to around normal numbers, right, when it came to the showings, that we were probably going to be releasing some pent-up demand. And so it was highly likely that showings were actually going to surpass 2019 numbers, right? If you guys remember me talking about that, and we definitely saw that happening within the past week. So if we look at last week, right, 2019, last Sunday, June 7th, 2019, we were at about 51. We surpassed it by about 20% for 2020, right? And yet this past week, let's look at that increase. Check out that increase right here, right? We went from that dip where everything had been pretty even. Right here, we're seeing this release of pent-up demand. So we've seen the showing numbers shoot up dramatically, which is good news, but it's also giving us, again, we're still in a limited inventory situation. So we're still having issues with some of our buyers. Now, what's really interesting is I've been talking to a few of you with different listings that are out on the market and things like that. And what we're seeing is that in some scenarios, in some price brackets, generally below 500, right, we're seeing properties move very, very quickly, right? We're seeing properties move very, very quickly. We're seeing a lot of multiple offer situations. We're seeing buyers that are very, very eager. In fact, even in my own pipeline, and this is why I'll note that the systems, the drips, the campaigns, they do work, because I am not in personal production anymore. And I've had 3 of my past clients reach out with interest in buying right now, right? And so we're definitely seeing those buyers that are ready to go are definitely interested in getting back into the game, right? They're wanting to see property, and we're seeing property under 500 fly off the shelves. Now, when we get into that higher bracket, we are seeing some properties sit a little bit longer, right? I spoke with somebody, one of our agents yesterday, who has a listing that's about that 625, 650 range. And there's a lot of viewings, there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of action, and yet the property isn't moving, right? There's not offers. And if you've ever had a property listed, if you have a lot of showings and you don't get offers within the first 2 to 4 weeks, what do we know it's probably comes down to? It's probably coming down to price, right? It's always probably going to come down to price. If you've got a property and you have no showings on it within the first couple of weeks, now given we want to inspect that a little bit because it could have been some element of COVID, and then the other side is it's usually price, right? It's usually price. So we want to make sure that we're getting enough of that exposure, and if we are getting exposure and we're not seeing any movement on it, then we want to make sure that we're talking to our clients around pricing. And that's where it's going to be really important to go in and use the price reduction scripts that were rewritten for Pivot, right? So that were rewritten specifically for the market that we're in, because what the showings are telling us is we're seeing that pent-up demand. There's a lot of people out there that are wanting to move forward, and we still have that limited inventory. So if something is not moving, right, then we need to really look at that and look at, are we getting enough exposure for it? And if we are getting enough exposure, then we need to have that conversation with our sellers around that price point. But that's kind of where we're at from a showing perspective. Now we're moving back into our industry data trends, and we've been looking at that 8-week window, right? We were looking at an 8-week window from the 27th to the January 27th to about March 22nd, which was that pre-COVID window. Our post-COVID impact, we are now looking at a 12-week window. So we're going to be looking at the weekly averages, right? Let's start off looking at last week. So the week of June 8th, the week prior, we saw properties listed at about 585, which had brought up our per week average for the median for sale price at 562 at 820, which was about 1.48% higher than it was in that 8-week window. Right. And yet we're seeing prices starting to be, at least within these last couple months, they've kind of stayed at a little bit of a higher price point. So that'll be a little bit interesting. What I'm curious to start watching, and what this is starting to tell me, right, with some of the properties that are going on, and with these prices slowly going up a little bit, is I'll be curious to see if these properties that are in this higher price bracket are moving, or if they're going to be sitting a little bit longer, right? So we're gonna start looking at that, but that's a conversation that needs to kind of be had, because again, we saw this past week, this past week, property jumped up slightly again, right, to 589. So from 585 in the week prior to 589. It's brought up the per week average to 565. If we see that trend continue to go up, then we're going to want to see how that's affecting inventory sitting or moving on the market. The other thing we're seeing in under contract. So under contract, the price point within that past week had been 620, right? 620. This past week, the average price point was 629, right? The average within the past week, which brought the per week average for that 12-week period up to 599, a little bit under. Now, what's probably going to happen here is within the next couple weeks, our median under contract price is very likely going to match or slowly surpass and go into the green in comparison to where we're at if we continue to see this, right? Because the last couple weeks we had properties that were at 620, right? Average price point 600 the week before, but that was a kind of an anomaly week. And then 620 the week prior to that. So we are seeing these under contract prices slowly creep up a little bit, right? Slowly creep up a little bit. And it's going to be important for us to take a look at, right? We're also going to look at our total inventory sold. Now, while inventory coming onto the market has moved pretty drastically over the last 11 weeks, when we look at new inventory, that's moved, inventory sold hasn't moved super drastically, right? We have a total impact 11-week average at 533. We were at 897 pre-COVID, right? Last week in Los Angeles County, 674 homes sold last week, right? 674 homes sold in comparison to the average pre-COVID, which was about 897 homes sold per week. Now, if we look at that, the week prior, 614 homes sold. There's a little bit of a dip. There's a little bit of an increase here, right? But it's not super drastic yet. And our 12-week average is still pretty low, right? Over that 12-week period of post-COVID, there's been about, on average, across those 12 weeks, 554 homes selling per week, right? Now, we've stayed, the number that we've stayed in comparison to total inventory sold pre-COVID versus post-COVID, this has stayed between this 39 percentile that we're at. We were at 43% at the beginning of this 12-week period, right? We were at about 43%. So it's fluctuated a little bit, but it's not a super drastic fluctuation, right? So what does that mean? Well, we're still not having the sales absorption that we would usually expect during this period of time throughout the year, right? So there's still less homes selling than there usually are at this point in the year. And there's still activity, but there's still less homes selling right now. We also look at that 8-week window pre-COVID, again, was the first quarter of the year. The first quarter of the year, we generally anticipate a dip. So this differentiation might be a little bit more drastic than it looks, because usually in the second and third quarter of the year, we see a high uptick in home selling. And so we're still a little bit low here, and yet we are seeing activity, right? It's a matter of who's getting that activity. It's a matter of the agents that are going out in the market and really being proactive about lead generating with their clients, about having some of the conversations with their clients. The other area here is that the buyers that you're coming into right now are going to be your very serious buyers. But the other area where there's a lot more opportunity right now is on the listing side, right? So if you're not taking advantage of that, if you're not having those conversations, then that's going to be an area that we really want to look at. Because if we look here, right, 8-week pre-COVID impact, we had about 19 homes that were listing per week. The week prior, we had 1,058 homes that were listed on the market. So we're back into that over the 1,000 mark, right? Last week, 1,152 homes were listed in Los Angeles County. There was 1,152 homes listed in Los Angeles County. That's brought our per week average back to about 1,001, right? So our per week average over this 12-week period is about 1,001. What does that mean? Well, when we started about 12 weeks ago, the dip that we had seen was about a 40% dip. We're at about a 24% dip. So we are not yet at pre-COVID numbers. And yet that's a way more significant increase than when we're seeing in sold inventory. So the opportunity that we have right now is in taking listings, because the listing inventory, people are interested in getting their home on the market. So we want to make sure that we're being proactive here, right? We're being proactive in following up with our potential sellers so that we have that opportunity. We also want to be proactive, because if we control that inventory, what happens? We could potentially get some additional buyers for it, because we can leverage that listing to get more leads, right? What's happening in the market right now is, while sales are still a little bit tight, what's also tightened up is who's getting the sales. And I want you guys to get your unfair share, right? It's about understanding what's happening in the market, taking advantage of it, having the right conversations so that you're able to get your unfair share in the market as well. And then I see if I can share the stats via email. Yes, they'll be up on the blog as well. They're always downloadable for you guys on there as well. So I'll make sure to note that they will be up by the end of the day. And I'll share the link in here as well for you guys. But yeah, so we'll make sure that those stats are shared out. So I hope that there's some clarity here in what we're looking at, and I'll make sure that this is posted out for you. In reality, what I'd really be looking at, and we're gonna have a conversation around a couple things this coming week. We're gonna have a great coach on Thursday, so make sure that you guys are on there. We're also going to be going under the hood on Thursday morning. We're going to be talking a little bit more about some of the smart plans, right? There's a lot that you guys can do when it comes to the technology, right? There's a lot of the resources that are going to be available in terms of how do we maintain the follow-up, because we need to make sure that we're getting that mind share so that we can take that market share later, right? So one, from a lead generation perspective, are you calling everyone in your database, right? And then aside from that, are you looking at the markets of the moment? Now, we've talked about forbearance, right? We've talked about forbearance, and we've talked about, last week, I talked about becoming the local expert of choice, right? Becoming the local economist of choice. It's making sure that we have an understanding of the numbers and that we're able to talk about this with our clients. But how do we use this in a more impactful, value-induced way? There's only a certain number of clients that you're going to be able to talk to, right? Let's say you're doing your contacts today. More than likely, if you're doing regular lead generation, you're going to talk to between 10 to 30 people today, maybe 10 to 40 if you're doing bold numbers, right? You're going to talk to 10 to 40 people today. What if you did a quick video every single week about what's going on in the market right now, what you're seeing in the market that you can send out to your database? What if you did something similar to this, but on how it'll impact your clients, right? On how this impacts your clients that you could post out for them, right? Now you're starting to become that local expert of choice for your clients, right? And that's going to be really important. What are other ways that you could do that? Well, forbearances, right? I've talked about that, is print out that chart and circle all the pieces that could be a 1 to 2 minute video. What if you had a quick video on what is a forbearance? What are the 4 different types of forbearances that we're seeing? What are your repayment options, right? What is a short sale? What is a foreclosure? What's a deficiency judgment? All of those little pieces that could be 1 to 2 minute videos, right? It becomes part of our lead generation content that we're sending out, right? If you're a person that you're like, I am never going to do video, it's just not going to happen, right? Then what is the information that you could be sending out? What is the content of value that you could share out to your clients, maybe through a mass text message through smart plans, right? Maybe through a mass text message through smart plans. What are those different ways that you can start becoming that expert of choice for your clients? That you're the person that they're coming to with any questions and answers that they might need, right? That's one piece of it. And then how are we actively lead generating and using this information, right? How are we actively using this? Now, if you have a ton of clients right now, then this is a great conversation to be having with them around what's going on in the market, right? It's a great conversation on why they should maybe do a price reduction. It's a great conversation on why right now might be a great time to list their home. It's a great conversation on why right now might be a great time to buy, but it's also a great conversation on why might right now, if you are buying, we still need to be competitive in certain price points, right? So that's where we want to make sure that we're utilizing this information as effectively as possible. And then that we're keeping an eye on what are the markets, the moments that we're choosing. So database is one piece, right? Database is one piece, our sphere of influence is one piece. And what is the other form of lead generation that you're going to be adding to your business? Is it forbearances? Next week, we're going to be doing a webinar on absentee owners as another market of the moment, right? On absentee owners, is that the market that we need to be looking at, right? What is that going to be for you? I know some of you are doing those phone calls as well. So we'll go into that a little bit more. And then the other piece is, are you utilizing some of the tools that you have to continue to post out content regularly, right? To post out that content regularly. So just some reminders, but I will make sure that the stats are up for you. A couple notes. So you are getting text messages from a new phone number, guys, and the links look a little bit different. We're testing out a new link system. So hopefully you guys all received it. If for any reason you did not receive the daily text message or the daily email today, please let us know right away. And that way we can make sure that you get access to that as well, right? It looks a little bit different, but it's just, we're using, Diana, I see that. I'm going to send you a link. You may have to actually opt in on the back end, right? And then we'll make sure that we have your correct phone number. So if you are not getting the messages, please reach out right away. that text message would have gone out yesterday, and then the email would have gone out this morning, right? A couple other things, the live streams, you're gonna see us posting about the live stream videos on our social media accounts. Remember, any of the live streams aside from our regular scheduled trainings, right? Those are gonna be directly on kwconnect.com, right? Those are directly on kwconnect.com. One thing to note with the live streams is if they conflict with something that is on our schedule, the live streams are recorded and available in kwconnect.com, right? So you can always go back at a later time to watch them. If you missed one and you're like, hey, I really wish that I had a chance to watch that one, that is gonna be directly available for you as well, right? So I just wanna remind you on that piece. But those are just a couple of the places to get started. So I hope that you guys have an absolutely phenomenal Tuesday. To end our day, of course, always a couple of quotes, right? A couple of my favorite quotes. This one that talks about making the sale, right? Making the sale, because we want to make sure we're out there lead generating and talking with our clients. Napoleon Hill says, the man who does more than he is paid for will soon be paid for more than he does. Or the woman who does more than she is paid for will soon be paid for more than she does, right? This is why making sure that we're sharing content, becoming that expert of choice, being a consultant, being of value to our clients is going to be so important. Robert Stabach says there are no traffic jams along the extra mile. There are no traffic jams along the extra mile. And Nelson Boswell says, here is a simple but powerful rule. Always give people more than they expect. Always give people more than they expect. We want to go in above and beyond. We under promise and over deliver. That's how we provide amazing customer experiences. And then Gemma Stone, last one, act as though each conversation is the most important one you will ever have, because in that moment it is. I want to reaffirm that. Reminder that in this role, in this job, in what we do as real estate agents, you change lives every single day. You change lives by helping people create equity and build a legacy for themselves. If they're selling, you help people to protect the equity that they have, right? If you're helping them stay in their home, you help them to protect equity. But if they're selling, you help them to benefit from the equity that they have, right? There's so many opportunities that we have. And sometimes the conversation that we have with our clients and the value that we can provide them, it's the most important conversation that you will ever have, right? So act as though each conversation is the most important you ever had, because in that moment, it is. Now go ahead and make it a great day, you guys, and I will talk with you soon. Have a happy Tuesday. Bye, everyone.